IELTS Speaking Test, Part 1, Introduction and Interview. Question 1. Do you work or are you a student?
I'm currently a university student. I'm in my final year studying business administration, so I'm really trying to focus on my studies and my thesis at the moment, which is quite demanding.
Do you like to travel?
Absolutely. I would say I have a real passion for traveling. For me, it's the best way to broaden my horizons and get a completely different perspective on life. I try to take a trip at least once or twice a year, funds permitting.
What is your favorite type of transportation when you go on a long journey? Why?
For long distances, I would definitely choose air travel. Although it's often more expensive, I find it the most convenient and fastest way to cover vast distances. Being able to get to the other side of the world in less than a day is simply amazing. Plus, I actually enjoy the process of flying. It's quite tranquil.
Have you traveled anywhere interesting recently? Where did you go?
Yes, I did. About 6 months ago, I managed to take a short break and visit Prague in the Czech Republic. It was a beautiful trip. I spent 5 days exploring the old town and the famous Charles Bridge. The architecture there is absolutely breathtaking, and I really enjoyed trying the local cuisine.
Do you prefer traveling alone, with friends, or family?
Generally speaking, I prefer traveling with one or two close friends. While traveling alone offers a certain sense of freedom and independence, sharing the experience with people you care about really enhances the whole trip. You have someone to reminisce with afterwards and share those once-in-a-lifetime moments.
Now let's talk about daily commute. How do you usually get to work or school?
Since I live relatively close to my university campus, I usually take the metro. The underground system in my town is quite efficient and reliable, even during rush hour. It's also much cheaper than taking a taxi, and it helps me avoid the heavy surface traffic.
How much time do you spend commuting every day?
On a typical weekday, my commute is fairly short. It's about 20 minutes each way, so perhaps 40 minutes in total. I find that time really manageable, and I often use those minutes to catch up on podcasts or quickly review my notes for the day ahead.
Do you think traffic congestion is a big problem in your city?
Without a doubt, yes, it's a huge issue, especially during the peak hours in the morning and evening. The city wasn't designed for the sheer number of private cars we have now. This results in terrible gridlock, which wastes an immense amount of time and also contributes significantly to air pollution.
How could people improve their daily commute?
I think there are two main ways. Firstly, people need to be encouraged to use sustainable options like cycling or walking if their destination is nearby. Secondly, the city must seriously invest in making public transport more comfortable, frequent, and widespread. If the bus or train is quicker and more pleasant than driving, people will naturally make the switch.
IELTS Speaking Part 2, Long Turn. Describe a long journey you once took.
I'd like to talk about a journey I took a few years ago to Vietnam, specifically to visit Hanoi and the famous Ha Long Bay. The trip started with a very long flight. We flew to Istanbul, and then we had a connecting flight that took us all the way to Hanoi, which involved about 15 hours of flying time in total. Once we were actually in Vietnam, we traveled mostly by a combination of public buses and local sleeper trains, which was an experience in itself. The train was definitely much slower than I'm used to, but it was a fantastic way to observe the local countryside and the daily life of people living outside the major cities. I went on this trip with my father. He's always been an avid traveler, and since I finished my secondary school exams, he wanted to celebrate with a big adventure. We planned the whole itinerary together, but he was the one who was really keen on seeing Ha Long Bay. The reason this journey was so memorable for me is twofold. Firstly, it was the longest trip I had ever taken, so it really challenged me to be organized and adapt to a completely different environment. But secondly, and more importantly, the scenery at Ha Long Bay was absolutely unforgettable. Seeing those immense limestone karsts rising out of the water was truly awe-inspiring. It felt like we were sailing through a magical landscape. It was a proper eye-opener to a part of the world I'd only ever seen in pictures, and spending that quality time with my father made it perfect.
IELTS Part 3 Discussion. What do you think are the major differences between transportation today and 50 years ago?
I believe the most significant difference is speed and accessibility. 50 years ago, international travel was often considered a luxury, mainly because flights were less frequent and more expensive. Nowadays, with budget airlines and much more efficient infrastructure, it's much more commonplace. Also, technology plays a major role. We now have electric vehicles, sophisticated navigation systems, and even talk of self-driving cars, which was pure science fiction in the past.
In what ways do you think transportation will change in the next few decades?
I think the future will be defined by sustainability and automation. We will see a major push, driven by climate concerns, towards totally electric or hydrogen-powered transport, virtually phasing out the internal combustion engine. Furthermore, self-driving technology will likely become the norm for both private vehicles and public transport, which could dramatically reduce accidents and potentially ease traffic congestion by optimizing flow.
Do you believe governments should invest more money in public transport or in building new roads? Why?
I strongly feel that governments should prioritize public transport. Building more roads is often just a short-term fix that simply encourages more people to buy cars, leading to more congestion down the line. It's a vicious cycle. Investing in high-quality public options like reliable subways and fast rail links offers a much more sustainable and equitable solution. It reduces the number of vehicles on the road, lowers emissions, and makes mobility available to everyone, not just those who can afford a car.
Let's move to travel and culture. How important is it for people to travel to other countries?
It is profoundly important. Traveling is probably the best form of education. It helps people move beyond their own cultural bubble and realize how diverse the world is. It fosters empathy, challenges stereotypes, and encourages people to become more open-minded. You can read about a culture, but nothing compares to experiencing it firsthand.
What do people learn about a new culture just by visiting a place for a short time?
Even a short visit can provide a powerful glimpse into a new culture. Visitors can observe social customs, like how people interact in public, how they dine, and the pace of life. They can try the local language, sample the unique cuisine, and appreciate the local art and history. It's enough to get a basic understanding and often spark a desire to learn more.
Do you think that international travel affects local traditions in a positive or negative way? How?
It's a double-edged sword, really. On the positive side, tourism often provides the necessary revenue to maintain historical sites and local craft traditions that might otherwise fade away. It creates jobs and injects capital into the local economy. However, negatively, mass tourism can lead to the commercialization and simplification of traditions, turning them into little more than a show for tourists, which can make them lose their original significance and authenticity.
What are some of the common difficulties people face when traveling abroad?
One of the most common difficulties is the language barrier, especially in less tourist-oriented destinations, which can make basic tasks like ordering food or finding directions extremely challenging. Additionally, there are often issues with adapting to cultural differences, such as etiquette or different concepts of punctuality. And of course, there's always the risk of simple travel mishaps, like lost luggage or delayed flights, which can definitely sour the experience.
Do you think modern technology has made traveling easier or more complicated? Give examples.
Overall, I would argue that technology has made traveling significantly easier. Tools like Google Maps, online booking platforms, and translation apps have completely transformed the process. For instance, using a translation app can immediately overcome the language barrier I just mentioned. Furthermore, having all your tickets and boarding passes saved on your phone makes the journey much smoother. While it can occasionally lead to information overload, the benefits of instant access and convenience are undeniable.
This is the end of IELTS speaking test. Thank you.